My husband will never see what the beautiful Russia of the future will look like. But we must see it. And I will do.
Applause for the wife of late Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Addressing European Parliament earlier today, Yulia Navalnaya had scathing words for Vladimir Putin, blaming him directly for her husband's death and saying she didn't know if his funeral would be peaceful. Navalny's spokesperson has announced that the funeral will take place in Moscow on Friday, exactly 2 weeks after Navalny's mysterious death at an Arctic penal colony. We've got CNN's Melissa Bell joining us now from Paris, and we heard Yulia's comments and messaging to the EU Parliament. How significant is what she said, and is Putin and the Kremlin going to be paying attention to her messaging?
I think what's been interesting over the course of the last couple of weeks is to see just how closely they've been paying attention. In fact, on several days, we've had direct responses to what the widow of Alexei Navalny had to say or tweet from the Kremlin in his daily briefings. So I think they are listening. There's also a suggestion on the part of Alexei Navalny's team that they struggled to find funeral parlors a date to get Alexei Navalny's funeral organized. What they say is that despite the team's attempts to get it for Thursday, which they'd hoped to organize both the farewell and the funeral on, because that is a day when Vladimir Putin addresses the Russian parliament, their allegation is that it was impossible to find anyone who might dig a grave. Instead, then, it will be held on Friday, this funeral. And of course, one of the questions is how many people inside the country will have the courage to attend, to pay their respects, to show their support for the late opposition leader. And I think the significance of what we heard today was both the content and the form. It was, here she was, Yulia Navalnaya, once again, as she had when she released that 9-minute video messaging, looking, sounding like an opposition leader or someone who was willing to step into the breach. But it was also the content of what she said. We heard more, for instance, about the allegations from her team of what happened in the days leading up to and following his death.
Putin killed my husband, Alexei Navalny. On his orders, Alexei was tortured for 3 years. He was starved in a tiny stone cell, cut off from the outside world, and denied visits, phone calls, and then even letters. And then they killed him. Even after that, they abused his body.
And of course, she also added, Eleni, that it was the many millions of Russians who are now outside of Russia that should be helped in their endeavor to try and get a free, democratic Russia. And that was her plea to European leaders: work not against them, but alongside them to realize this ambition that had been Alexei Navalny's of a free, democratic and beautiful, as she called it, Russia. She also went back, Eleni, over a number of the things that had been at the very heart of his position, that this is a corrupt, she said, mafia state that is essentially brittle, and will be paying very close attention to both what happens at the funeral inside Russia and the noise she continues to make from outside, Eleni.
Melissa Bell, thank you so much for that update.